The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance in Business, Mindset, Wellness, and Success to help you master disruption.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon. Welcome back to WholeCEO with Lisa G. I am thrilled to welcome a very special guest to the show. Jack Squires is the boardroom strategist that founders and CEOs call when the stakes are high. With over 2 decades of leading and advising dynamic companies across many verticals, including logistics, finance, and manufacturing, he has navigated through capital raises, scaled growth, and guided highly successful exits. Endorsed by Microsoft's founding CFO, as well as former NASDAQ chairman, Jack is trusted by private equity and growth stage CEOs to cut through the noise, spot valuation gaps, and build boards that actually drive enterprise value. Welcome, Jack. I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Hi, Lisa. Great to be with you.
This is going to be a great conversation. Finish this sentence. A great board culture starts with...
A great board culture starts with a dynamic focus on value creation, where dissenting views are welcomed, a strategy is developed through trust and accountability. A privately held board is nimble, adaptive, and enabling of governance, value creation, and growth.
That's great. So why do you focus on them primarily? What makes working with those leaders and owners so meaningful to you?
Yeah, it's really fun because typically a privately held company that I get involved with is still run by either the founder or a CEO who has been with the company for a long time and has a lot personally invested in the success of that organization. And so they're not just looking to take the next step in their career, which is fine. But typically in the privately held company, the person at the top and the C-suite are really focused on creating value for ownership as well as the employees within the company. And when they have that kind of focus and that kind of passion for the company, it just makes it much more exciting to work with.
Oh, I can imagine that it would be, with everybody having skin in the game and really wanting with their heart for the company to succeed. And let's jump into some of the dirt, like from everything you've seen, what's one big mistake private boards keep repeating, and what should they be doing differently to avoid it?
That's a great question. It's really very simple. The most common mistake that I see in privately held boards is the actual construction of the board directors. The term I use is vertical diversity ratio, or VDR. Most board constructs have a 180-degree divergence from that concept.
You've mentioned a very fascinating concept, this vertical diversity ratio. Can you break that down in simple terms for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So most private boards are constructed very heavily weighted to experts within the particular industry vertical of the company. Founders and CEOs tend to seek out experts in their vertical with the assumption that they're the only people that can truly understand the industry and therefore the only ones that can effectively advise them as a board director. However, what this often creates is a myopic perspective and, even worse, an unintended echo chamber of confirmation bias. It's much more effective to add directors who have led companies of a similar size and scaled those companies effectively, regardless of industry vertical. So, quick example of this would be a mid-cap manufacturer who would possibly seek a director from a large manufacturer, oftentimes retired, assuming they know the secrets and where the bones are buried. However, the secrets actually lie in scaling a business. Those leaders would have chewed the same dirt as the CEO of the company. That they've understood what it took to scale that company, regardless of what the vertical is. I spent 14 years advising C-suites and boards across all industry verticals. And what I learned in that time is that 97% of all challenges and goals are exactly the same across all verticals. It's only about 3% of the actual business that makes it unique to their particular vertical. My vertical diversity ratio is very simple. You asked what it is in simple terms, here it is. The
Okay.
formula is that for every board director who is from the vertical of the company, there are at least a minimum of 2 directors who are from outside the vertical. So, for instance, common wisdom is a private board be comprised of 6 to 9 directors. Using the VDR, that would equate to 2 to 3 directors who are from the company's vertical and 4 to 6 directors who hail from other verticals entirely. Personally, I'm a big believer in a 6-director board. This allows for a healthy VDR with divergent perspectives, but still small enough for agility and decisive action.
Well, thanks for breaking that down, because business is business. So it makes sense to me that you would want people who have scaled businesses. Would you say it's from a same size company where that would help impact the board performance?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Lisa. You nailed it right on the head. It's so much more impactful to be working with directors who have really been through that particular growth stage in their companies, and they've executed it successfully. They've gone through the problems and the challenges and gotten their nose bloodied, and they can help that CEO and that company avoid those pitfalls that they went through themselves.
Well, that makes sense. And how does that impact the value creation?
Well, that's a great question, Lisa. It's a really common misconception that a board of directors' primary function is providing oversight and accountability for a CEO and leadership. However, one of the most exciting and meaningful benefits of a privately held board is its versatility. Of course, governance and oversight are very important functions of a board. I'm certainly not suggesting that they're not. However, a board can be so much more. If constructed correctly with VDR, a private board can and should provide so much more than that. A private board should be able to drive value, not just encourage it. A truly effective board should be leveraging networks, resources, and relationships to the benefit of the company. Many strategic alliances through non-competing organizations can be a fabulous but often ignored opportunity for growth that's both rapid as well as sustainable for the company.
Well, yeah, by bringing their networks in, it makes sense that they can actually be a driver of value as a board. And there's always that debate is like board should oversee or actively drive growth. So what is your perspective on how your diverse board can be a real engine for value creation?
Yeah, no, you have to focus on it first and foremost and be bringing in directors who are of that mindset. So if you're using VDR correctly and you have directors who have been through that growth process and have been through that exact stage that the company is at now, they can draw on their relationships and leverage those that help them grow, whether it be third party marketing or outside business development or whatever. Typically those are not specific to a particular industry vertical, and so they can reach out to those relationships and leverage them and possibly even help bring in employees that have helped them in the past. And so there's just so much that a board can do and the directors can do if constructed properly.
I love the diverse viewpoints too, because it seems like when you're building a board, you're building a team, you want diverse viewpoints and not everybody who's just going to be like yesing you and agreeing with you and only having experience that you've also had.
Lisa, that's so correct. Just a quick story that actually happened to me. I was brought into a manufacturing company that was very stagnant in their growth. They were successful, they'd been around a long time, but they were just plateaued and they couldn't seem to break through. So when I asked about their board construction, it was entirely comprised of folks, mostly retired now, who had run manufacturing companies. However, they were all much larger manufacturing companies than the company that they were serving. And so they really didn't know how to scale the company. They didn't know how that manufacturing company that they ran got from this earlier stage and the smaller stage and scaled up to the larger area. They just really understood how to run a large manufacturer and they knew it very well. But they just didn't have the ability to coach up that CEO how to get over that hump. So immediately I suggested implementing VDR, and it was not well received, and and there was a lot of skepticism. But after a couple of months, I was able to convince them that that was the right way to go. And so we brought in a couple of new directors who were from totally different industry verticals. However, they had scaled companies of that same size and scope very effectively, and they brought in ideas and concepts and different levels and types of accountability that this company had never had, and brought in some personnel changes to business development and to marketing. And almost immediately, certainly in the first quarter, they started to see scaling successfully of that company, and that company grew quite a bit and ended up having a very successful exit a couple of years down the road.
Well, that's a great example, I mean, of how diverse opinions and experience can help drive growth and massive success, because in the end of the day, the acquisition is the goal for many of these companies, isn't it?
Well, it is not all, but all companies should be positioning themselves as if a transaction was on the horizon. If you're doing that, you're ready for almost anything, whether it be a capital raise, a debt placement, or a transaction. If you're positioning your company as if you're working towards a transaction, you are going to be ready and you're going to be nimble.
That is fantastic. Well, I think that we should wrap up with a lightning round and just give me the first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right, let's start with the most valuable leadership lesson you've ever learned.
Yeah, sure. Hire great people, eliminate obstacles to their success, and then get out of their way and let them do their thing. Gifted CEOs create future leaders. If you have a team full of current and future leaders, you are going to have a successful company. I've never seen it fail.
So micromanaging is out and lifting others, raising other leaders is in.
Absolutely. That's the key.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I want to know, what is a book that every board member should read?
You know, that I get asked that question quite a bit, but I really always kind of fall back to one, and that is a book called Win Forever by Pete Carroll.
Great title.
Yeah, it is. It's a little misleading because it's not about winning every time you go out. Nobody's going to do that. Everyone's going to fail sometimes. Everybody's going to have setbacks sometimes. But what Pete Carroll, as he explains in his book, means by win forever is creating a culture of winning, of an expectation of winning. And if you have a culture of winning throughout your organization, it's going to be self-perpetuating. And once you get to the point where your culture is self-perpetuating, that's when you have truly achieved success, I think, in your organization, and it will play out in the numbers.
Well, Win Forever is such a great concept. I'm going to pick it up. Just a few more questions and then we'll wrap this up. What is the best advice you've ever got about building trust at the top?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Hold people accountable, starting with yourself, and celebrate the team wins. But if you are really demonstrating not only to your board, but also to your employees that are looking to you for leadership, that you first and foremost are holding yourself accountable, then they'll be much more accepting of you holding the mirror up to them and helping them get better. So accountability across the entire organization, including the board, is very, very important.
I'm a total believer in self-leadership, and people are watching what you do, not what you say. So that's a lesson that can apply to business, families, any kind of team.
Absolutely.
All right. So final. Okay. So building a great board culture, um, we've already gone through that, right? Any final stuff you wanted to drop on our audience about building a great board culture?
Sure. Really simple. A great board culture starts with a dynamic focus on value creation, where dissenting views are welcome and strategies developed through trust and accountability.
Well said. Trust and accountability. If you are a CEO, investor, or board member looking to unlock more value from your board, connect with Jack Squires at Sound Consulting Group. He helps privately held companies elevate governance, improve decision making, and create stronger strategic alignment between boards and leadership. Or connect with him on LinkedIn. So, how can people get a hold of you?
And it's really easy. My email is jack@soundconsultinggroup.net.
If you're looking to explore how your board can move from oversight to impact, apply for a complimentary 20-minute board strategy session with Jack to identify the biggest valuation lever in your business today. Jack, thank you for being a fabulous guest on Whole CEO with Lisa G.
Thanks, Lisa. I really enjoyed it.